And in today's session, I've decided that I'll take the flow of the session in a way that initially I'll be sharing some of my photographs, then we'll proceed further to some of the tips and tricks which we can actually use to, you know, handle different type of sports which are there in India, which are like quite common here. And gradually we'll move further towards the questionnaire session. And I think I'll be assigning like 15 to 20 minutes or maybe more for that. So I would say if you guys have any sort of questions, let's not interrupt the session in the middle, and I'll be like super happy to discuss everything and answer all your questions in the end. We'll assign the time slot for that. So I hope we have like few people, and I think it's 4 p.m. already. So let's proceed further. I hope everyone can see the photograph which I have shared. And I'll start this session with a very basic question which I always get to hear from most of the photographers who are trying to get into sports. And that basic question is, which is the best camera to use, which is the best camera to buy if you are looking forward to get in sports. And my personal perspective for that is even the most basic cameras are good enough to do sports photography. I'm not talking about the professional sports photography, but if you are just a novice, or if you're just starting out in a sports, you can start with any of the cameras, any of the lenses, and things can be worked out with that. I think more people are joining in.
I think Navin, your picture you have closed it or minimized, so I can't see it. Yeah,
Can you see it now?
yes, now it's there.
Okay, I think more people are joining it right now. So do you want me to start it again? Because what do you think?
Um, I
With the
think we
basic.
haven't started anything yet, so you can start with the camera discussion, the one which you prefer.
Great, great. I'll do that. So now you can see the picture for sure, right?
Again, it's gone. Yeah, now it's back there.
Now it's visible. Okay.
Yeah.
So welcome to today's session, everyone. So I was just discussing about the fact that there's one question which we always face. As a photographer, I always get to hear this question from a lot of people out there. Um, they're always interested to know about which camera is the best camera to use if you're looking forward to get into sports photography. And I was just telling everyone that the most basic cameras can actually perform well. There's no point of having those high-end bodies if you are literally not getting into sports photography as a professional. And any camera which is good enough with 6 to 7 fps, any camera which has good 6-7 fps is like good for any sort of sports. That's what my personal belief is. And the kind of work I have been doing, be it marathons, be it even underwater, be it cricket, be it badminton. Obviously, we can't shoot cricket and badminton with those 6-7 fps, because at certain moments, at certain point of times, we are really looking forward to you know shoot more, in the sense to capture the action at its peak. So that's one dilemma which every budding photographer has in his mind when they are starting out. And yeah, so I've got one comment. I can answer you, and also okay, great. So I'll start with the stuff that how to capture action. Most of you have already been doing that. Most of you have been wondering how you can actually improve your skills in capturing the action. So for action, there are like different.
And he
Mr. Abe, I would request you to turn off your mic, please. Yeah, so I was saying that even for the action, it's not required to always shoot on those faster shutter speeds and all. You might have seen some of the great photographs which have been captured by other sports photographers out there, with those pannings and with shutter speeds as low as 1/10, 1/60, and those pictures still made their ways to the World Photo Awards and all that. And shooting sports is it's not about you are always capturing the action. It's always about the capturing the emotions in that. And when I say that, what do you call an emotion in sports photography? In sports or any sort of action photography, if you're capturing a moment at its peak, that is the moment you are looking for. That is the moment the clients are looking for. That is the moment the player is looking forward to see when he's done with the match or he's done with his performance. So capturing any action at its peak is something everyone is looking for. I'll share just one quick picture for you to have a look. So let's take this one as an example. Um, as you can see, I mean, there's this batsman with that amazing posture, and there's this fielder who has got the ball in his hands. So for me, not just for me, for the clients as well, this is something which is actually conveying the true sense of the match to them. How? Because most of the pictures from this match, let's say most of the pictures of this match only, the action has been captured on its peak. I mean, if I would have captured this photo this has been shot in a daytime, and for me, I believe I've still got the action at its peak, and that is usually what I'm really looking forward to whenever I'm shooting sports, not just in cricket, even in other sports. I'll share more stuff with you, right? So I coming back to this picture, let's say, as I also mentioned that it's always about capturing emotions. Though it's a very basic shot, I don't personally like it a lot, but just because of there are so many, so much of emotional connect to it, I feel that this picture actually made its way to, I mean, everyone liked it so much that they were able to print and do some things, a lot of things with this. So in this photograph, what you are seeing is this batsman on the left hand side. He just got out, and all the team members of the opposite team, they're on the right hand side and celebrating his uh, leaving. When he's leaving, they're actually celebrating it. So things like that I've been doing, and uh, I'll share some pictures of motorsports, which is my key genre. And let me just get back here. I hope you guys can see it. Are you guys able to see this picture?
No, not yet. I think you
One second.
stopped presenting. Yeah.
Okay, one second. My key genre when it comes to sports photography is not cricket, is not badminton, is not underwater. It's the motorsports. Since 2011, I would say, by the end of 11, let's say 12. Since 2012, I have been doing more sports for Mahindra and Maruti Suzuki, and for them I've done like hell lot of assignments. Like everywhere I've traveled the farthest corners of this country to shoot more sports. And let's just focus a bit on this picture. A lot of people feel that action photography is just about capturing photos at higher shutter speeds with the lenses which are like great enough to perform even in the worst situations. But if you look at this picture, this had been photographed in broad daylight, with a shutter speed on 1 on 80. That's intentional for sure. We call it panning. And even in such action based scenarios, I mean, shooting more sports is like super duper difficult when it comes to shooting cricket, when you compare it with the cricket, because the action is happening at a very very extremely fast paced, and doing panning at that point of time is sometimes really difficult, and sometimes it's very easier for the photographers. So I captured this shot back in 2015 or 16, I believe, and the very basic car rolling at 120 100 kilometers per hour, and I was able to capture the panning of this car. And similarly, we proceed ahead the same autocross. This was from 2017. So if you, as I said, if you see the emotional connect, although there is no emotion in this picture, emotion in terms of human emotions, but when I talk about, the capturing the action at its peak, you guys can actually see it that it has been captured at its peak. So this gives rise to a question that what differentiates a good action photograph with the one which is not that so great. And in my perspective, anything and everything which has been captured uh, with perfect camera settings, of course, and when the action is at its peak, is something differentiates a photograph. So these are some photographs, again a panning one. I'll discuss a bit about panning. Do you guys have any questions by any chance? Because I'm like fiddling a lot with this thing. The more sports and the cricket. By any chance, would you like me to focus a bit on something else, maybe? Because I've got other portfolios as well. Football, okay. Hello, sir. Good evening, sir. Yeah, see you. Okay, great, cool. So I'll just shift it to that as well. Okay. Uh, let's just be on more sports for a while. Then I'll shift to that. I'll just discuss a bit about the panning shots, because in sports photography, panning is something really interesting element which can add a lot to your photographs. I'll tell you a difference when you are shooting a subject and your subject are like perpendicular to your camera. Let's say this is your camera and your subject is perpendicular to your camera. It's not going like vertically or diagonally away or towards the camera. Then panning is something which you can definitely try. When the subjects are moving diagonally, or diagonally towards or away from the camera, it's like super duper hard to do it, because not hard, I would say. Usually most of the times you won't get the desired result, because as soon as you will pan, the subject will go away from the camera, or it will come like really close to the camera. In those scenarios, every photographer who has been shooting sports, we avoid shooting panning shots. And I think when you are doing assignments for your clients, be it a corporate client or be it a sports team or anything, uh, you have to deliver them photos which conveys the meaning of photos which are uh, good enough to document the whole event. Along with that, you definitely need to deliver the offbeat shots as well. So let's say this picture, if I deliver pictures like these, 10-15 pictures like these from a single day event, that's, I think, more than enough. Because for such sort of photographs, usually a layman, I mean, this is my personal experience, usually laymen are not that great to connect with. They prefer things like that. Let me show you that. Usually a layman would prefer something like that, this, in which a lot of action is visible. Rather, layman feels for a panning. uh, I've got like situations when people told me, okay, this shot is shaky, though it's like tack sharp, but making a layman understand the difference between a panning and a blurry shot is quite difficult. So it completely depends on the fact that what kind of client you are working for, and then you need to take a call accordingly. So let's say these are some of the photographs from an autocross event, and this was a one-day event. And such sort of photographs, when you get to see, these are the ones which mostly all of the clients prefer, not just the clients, even the participants and all that. And this has been in my portfolio since a long time. I'll just shift to badminton now. uh, back in like 2 years ago, I had started shooting badminton as well, the Premier League, the badminton Premier League. And I had been shooting motorsports before that. Though I had done like a lot of assignments in motorsport, but badminton was something which actually uh, gave me a feeling that I was quite naive at it. Why it happened with me, I'll tell you the reason. Because when you're doing sports, not just sports, let's say any photography, extremely important for you to understand the subject really well. And I had under prepared myself when I had started shooting badminton. When I say I had under prepared myself, I would say what had gone wrong was that I had not done the recce of the stadium. I had not done the recce of the spots. Plus, there were like some last minute changes which we had to go through. So for sports photography, uh, what I have learned over a period of time is that it's extremely important for you to have the perfect kind of equipment when you are shooting sports. Along with that, you definitely need to have the perfect knowledge of the sports as well, whatever you are shooting, be it any sport. You definitely need to have the knowledge of that particular sport, because if you are a naive guy who doesn't know where the ball is gonna be, where the player is gonna stand, what could be the next move of the bowler, what could be the next move of the batsman or things like that, you won't be able to capture anything. You won't be able to. Plus, shooting these indoor sports like badminton, it becomes much more difficult. Why? Because though the lightings are quite good, because obviously you can't use flashes and all that, right? Though the lightings are quite great to work with, but even with those lightings, sometimes you feel that it could have given, um, if you could have got some better lighting, the photographs could have been much better. Because for such sort of picture, you definitely can't go less than 1 on 800 or something, like 1 on 1000 on the shutter speed, and definitely you need faster lenses. So I shot all this badminton photographs with a 70-200 lens, because that was a quite a small stadium. Usually for badminton we prefer a 400 2.8, but for this particular event I had used the 200 mm. I remember it really well. So these are the photos, and if you see all the photos, I'll just go back to what I had been discussing like 2 minutes ago. All of them will have the action at its peak. So the very basic thing of action photography is to capture the action when it is on the top of it. That's it. If you have got the shot, you have made it. I mean, you guys, like all of us have seen, like day before yesterday, uh, we saw a save done by Nicholas Puran, and that shot was not that great, right? Everyone knows that, but that shot still made it to the newspaper, still made it to the media, still made it to the social media. Why? First, the action was super different. Second, it was at its peak, right? So yeah, if you go through, like, just do a normal Google search and go through photographers like Al Bello and other guys. If you get to see their photographs, you'll notice that 99% of the pictures which actually make their ways to the press agencies, to the news agencies, and all that, they are uh, they are the kind of pictures in which the documentation of the event is there. Along with that, things are happening in the perfect manner. Perfect in the sense, again, the action at speed. I think I have spoken this a lot. Let's just skip this topic now. So, I'll shift a bit to the documentation part of sports photography. Even in sports, okay, I'll just shift a bit towards the documentation part of sports photography. Even in sporting events, you get to work for different clients, and these days, all these corporate companies and all that, they are also conducting a lot of sports photography assignments, sports photography events, and they are usually in the need of the people, but they are actually looking out for people who are good enough in capturing action. But rather than that, at the same time, they're also looking out for the people who can actually capture the feel of the event. As it I mean, just for example, just look at this picture. In this photograph, what I have captured, like 60% of the frame, what I've captured is the landscape, and that car which is coming up from the left or right hand side is actually giving me the feel of the landscape more And I don't call this as an action photograph. Why? Because there are certain type of assignments where the clients are looking out for documentation of the action events. So for sports photographers, specifically in India, if you are not shooting all these IPL and things like that, specifically for Indian clients, what I have learned in past is that there are majority of them, they are looking out for photographers who are able to document their event in a way that sports gets embedded into it. Have a look at this picture again. A very basic nice shot, a car coming from right going towards the left, leaving a trail behind it. This is what they are usually looking at. This is what they are usually eyeing for when they are doing events like these, because their main focus is to convey the feeling of the event, where the event is happening, how the event is happening, things like that. So majority of the frames you will see here will have um, you know uh, the landscape rather than the biker or the car. So similarly, this photograph, it is on the same lines. So this is what usually the Indian clients are looking for. If you have got into sports photography, if you are planning to get into it, I always tell this thing to everyone that sports is gonna be the next big thing in India. Like in India, like every second photographer is focusing on weddings, events, corporate, and all that. But I personally believe now is the right time to get into sports photography. When I had entered back in 2008, things were like really different. They were used to be like assignments next to none, right? And at that time, I was able to fetch work. And in these situations, when the work is like the market is overflowing with the work, and usually the clients are unable to find the perfect photographers who can actually help them to deliver what they are expecting from them. Look at this picture. So this is the client specific requirement kind of photographs, what the clients are really looking forward to in India. But I would tell you, when you are shooting such sort of picture, it doesn't mean that you do not have the liberty to shoot something like this, or maybe really an action packed situation like uh, maybe this, right? So yeah, so something like this. So basically, when you are working for the clients, they actually expect you to deliver a mix of everything, which they can actually get it published in the newspapers, which they can actually keep it for their records, which they can actually deliver to the participants as well. So I would say sports is gonna be a big thing in India in next few years. It already is, but those people who have joined this workshop today, I would definitely tell you that you guys uh, can actually start getting into sports at a serious front, because things are changing drastically. They have changed drastically, and things are on track right now. There's one more question which I get from a lot of photographers out there. They always ask, apart from the camera equipment, they always ask about the kind of the setup for the camera, which usually we as a photographer, we as a sports photographer, keep to shoot the action, especially the focus settings. And as I mentioned that for camera settings, you need to fiddle around, you need to check out, you need to play around with it. Sports can be captured on 1 on 60 as well, and there are certain sort of sports which you can't even capture on 1 on 1000 per second. And so for that, you need to find a sweet spot. For that, you need to find a balance. For that, you need to understand the fact that what kind of picture you are looking forward to deliver to your client. Usually for track events, for a running event or something like that, anything above 1 on 320, 1 on 250, not 250, I would say anything above 320 is perfectly fine. For motorsports, there are two types of photographers out there in motorsports. Few of them are like they are shooting action at 1 on 1500, 2000, 1 on 4000, 1 on 1000, something like that. But I personally try my level best to handle the shutter speeds in a way that most of the times, in most of the pictures, I really want my subjects to have, and most of the times the subjects are these cars and bikes only. Most of the times the idea is to have those tires in motion, because I'll tell you a difference. I'll show you a photograph as well. So the difference is, uh, when you are shooting a picture and the tire is in motion, that photograph actually conveys you the sense of motion. Let's say, look at this picture. This has been shot at 1 on 320, if I'm not wrong. Um, um, let's talk about this picture. You can actually see the water curtain, that sort of curtain, uh, which has been made by the tire, and this tire of the bike is actually in motion. If I would have captured the same guy without this mud hole, without this motion in the tire, this would have been a flat picture. I mean, you can capture it. I mean, you can just do it with your own bike and ask anyone to capture that. So my perspective towards capturing sports is always about showing the motion in the photograph, and that can be done when you are playing around, when you are fiddling around with your shutter speeds. Let's talk about. I mean, this shot actually is conveying everything. You can see the action at its peak. Similarly, this photograph, right? Okay, I'll tell you one more thing. Everyone believes, after seeing this photograph, I just recollected. Most of the people who are thinking of getting into sports photography believe that they need all those big lenses, and 72, and although 7200 is a must. I mean, if you should definitely own that. But you know what? There had been instances uh, where a wide angle played a very important role for me. If I'm able to recollect it properly, this was being shot at 24 mm from a really close distance, and the car was just passing from left to right through a mud hole, and this actually beats the idea of having those bigger lenses. See, it depends what kind of sports you are shooting. And if you are shooting cricket or football, someone has asked me about the football. We'll just get back to it as well. If you are shooting sports like cricket or football, you definitely need those bigger lenses. For cricket, anything less than 500 is something which is not advisable. For football, anything less than 400, 2.8 is not advisable, but you can manage that with 200 and a converter as well. I hope all these converter and all these terminologies, you guys are definitely aware about that. If not, we'll just take the 15-20 minutes session in the end, and I'll answer all of your questions. So through this picture, I was trying to tell you that it's not always required to have those bigger lenses to get into sports photography. If you are just starting out, if you are just trying to get into the business, I would really suggest you to start shooting from whatever you own. You own a D5200, you own a 7500, or any camera you own, start shooting with that. And I remember I had shot this picture with a D750. So D750 is not that fast, right? It's not fast like a D5 or D6, something like that. I had shot with this with a D750. Similarly, let's talk about this picture. As I mentioned, I am always in search of capturing photographs in which the motion is there. Because again, if I would have captured this photograph with a car coming towards the camera, this would have conveyed a feeling of nothing. This would have been just a normal picture, right? So in every picture, my idea is to keep shutter speeds in a way that the subject gets captured with tack sharpness, and uh, the other stuffs which are conveying the action gets captured in motion. So this was done at again 1/400. This was the WRC rally back in Uttaranchal. Okay, so I'll get on to, let's say, just talk about this picture. I don't like this photograph, but when you are working for the clients, you definitely need to deliver something like this as well. So I was telling you that, when you are capturing action, it has to convey some sort of feeling of motion as well. In this picture, though, the tire in the left hand side is a bit in the air, but I mean, if you'll see it minutely only, then you'll be able to see that. And for me, it is conveying me nothing. For the clients, it's something which they really need. So, when you are shooting sports, along with what you want to shoot, along with that, what you want to shoot, you have to understand the requirements as well.
Naveen, unfortunately, we did not see that image. The one you
Oh,
just.
oh, okay, one sec. This one. I was talking about this one. I was saying I particularly don't like this image because I've shot better than these, but this is something most of the clients are looking for. Because, as organizers, as event organizers, uh, their idea is to have a mix of everything, the action, the straight shots and everything. So, these are like important shots to be done. So, I was saying, when you are shooting sports, you definitely need to take care of the expectations along with the fact that what exactly you are looking forward to shoot. Am I going like really fast?
No, I think your pace is
Okay,
pretty good.
okay.
Perfect.
Okay, so this is what I really like. Such sort of action-packed photographs is what everyone loves to see, what everyone loves to uh, deliver to their clients as well. And we all want to add such sort of pictures in our portfolios because such sort of pictures gets us work. And uh, if I talk about for this picture, I would really want to talk about the background of this as well. We were in the middle of Jaisalmer desert, middle of nowhere, uh, and these car rallies, when we are shooting them, uh, they happen in the middle of the desert where there is no vegetation, where there is no habitat and things like that, where there are no people. And just to reach at these locations, we have to push ourselves so badly that it gets very tedious just to reach at the locations. And reaching there with all your equipment and all that, and again finding a perfect spot to get the perfect shot is something, I would say, is the 80% of the job which you have already done. If you have reached the spot, you have already done the 80% of the job. Rest everything is uh, planning can help you out, but I would say most of the time, luck also plays a pivotal role here. Why I'm saying that is because, with me it has happened. There had been instances uh, when I was able to capture the photograph just because I was lucky enough to be present at that particular location. And the guy who captured this Nicholas Puran's shot, he was just lucky enough to be present at a location where he was able to do that, right? So most of the times in action and sports photography, it's about being at the right place at the right time. And obviously, you can't be there all the time, but you can actually, if your planning is done in a way, if you have planned things in a way properly, then you can actually, make sure that your luck uh, comes in handy whenever you would want it to. Why I'm saying that is because, let's say you are shooting cricket, or let's say you are shooting motorsports only, and you don't have those charts, you don't have those roadmaps and all that. You don't know where the car is gonna be because when these cars come in, I'll just show you one video. It just gives you few seconds just to get one particular best shot. I'll just show a quick video here, just to show you how quick things really happen. I hope you guys were able to see it. The one car came in, it just gave you 2 second slot, not even 2 second. It gave you 1 second slot, and immediately when you just kept following it, the other car came in, and you had to be ready to photograph in a different way. So I think I'll have these photographs handy as well. I must have kept them somewhere. 1 second. Okay, it is of the same location, though it's a different photograph shot from the other side of the video had been made from the right hand side. This was the photograph which was shot from the left hand side. So see, this is the amount of time you get to shoot things, right? I think you are unable to see the photograph. 1 second.
Right.
Okay, this is the shot I'm talking about. So if you see that video, that was shot from the right hand side, and this was the car, and this was being photographed from the left hand side. So through that video, I was trying to convey you that this is the kind of time slot which you get to have when you are shooting motorsports specifically. And I'll just shift to cricket from here. And when you are shooting cricket, you don't even get that 1 second thing. I'll show you right away. So these are some of the cricket shots. I hope they are visible now. Yeah, so these are some of the photographs from the cricket assignment, cricket photography assignment. And when we are shooting things like these, uh, we don't even get a second as well. Things are happening so fast, things are going on really quick, that you have to completely rely on your experience, your responsive times. You have to rely on your camera equipment. You have to rely on the positions which you have placed yourself into. And gradually when you start doing things, you understand uh, that positioning positioning yourself for matches and all, be it football, be it cricket, is something really important. Because you have to place yourself in a way that you are able to capture the action at its best form, that too when you do not have any guarantee, any sort of guarantee to see where the ball is gonna be in the next move. Because in such a huge stadium, when you have to capture the bowler's action, when you have to capture the action of the batsman, when you have to capture the action of the fielder, you have to be super duper quick. So when I'm shooting cricket, I use a D5 with a minimum of like 500 lens, and sometimes I use a 1.4 converter as well with a 500 to capture such sort of images. This was shot at around 600 with, I think, with a 500 lens, and a 1.4x converter was used for this photograph. And what happens when you're shooting things, cricket is one of the hardest one to shoot, because the ball is of the primary focus, and you never know where the ball is gonna be in the next moment, in the next second. So these are some of the cricket photographs which you can definitely have a look. So all of the photographs which you are seeing, I'll again just get back to one thing: action at its peak. Particularly, I love this picture the most, though he didn't get run out. I hope you can see the ball in the literally in the center of the frame. The guy coming from the right hand side hit his bat on the ground, screeching the surface of the ground. The fielder whose hands are in his, whose hands are there to catch the ball. So such sort of pictures are something we are always trying to capture. And you know what? You go with any sports photographer out there. I talk about any photographer out there. We are always not able to capture such sort of pictures, right? They come in with experience, plus they are not that common. You might have seen such sort of action on your on your TV screens a lot of times, but most of the photographers, they actually miss out stuffs. Most of them, they actually miss out stuffs, because you have to be so damn quick with your response times, and making your camera move, making that huge lens move around towards the batsman, towards the fielder, towards the bowler, is a task in itself. I've made a small video, like I made it like few months ago. I'll just show that video as well. It'll just show you a bit that how difficult it is sometimes, because when these matches are happening, most of the times these are like day matches, and in day, something which affects us most is the temperature. This might sound funny to most of you, but temperature plays a very important role in sports photography, any sports. If the things are happening in daytime or even in nighttime, I mean, if it's very hot, your equipment will take a toll. If it's very cold, your batteries will drain out really, really fast. So my particular belief for handling situations like that uh, is that I always keep backup equipment. If I'm carrying a camera, I always carry three cameras. If I'm carrying a, let's say, a 500 lens, obviously I can't carry a separate 500 lens as a backup, but I do carry a extra 7200, like two 7200s I'm talking about, and along with the converters, like a 2x and a 1.4x converter, because if anything goes wrong with the equipment, you cannot just, I mean, you are just next to useless, for specifically for such sort of assignments, specifically for these sports. Although in motorsports and all, you can definitely rely on that. Plus, I was talking about the temperature thing. So I've faced such situations in which we were shooting a T20 kind of match, those 20 overs in the middle of the day, like 12 noon, something like that, overhead sun. And I think this was shot in an overhead sun only. This picture, yes, this was shot in an overhead sun. So I remember what happens when you are shooting continuously for like 3-4 hours, when you are shooting 12 frames per second or 10 frames per second for a longer period of time. Your equipment, be it a D5, be it a D6, whatever camera you are using, it takes a toll, and the toll gets reflected to the buffer speed within a while. It just gets reflected to the buffer speed. So that's when again the experience comes in handy, because in such sort of situations you definitely need to give some sort of rest to your camera equipment as well. Not just the camera, even the lenses. There had been situations when the lenses had got so damn hot that I literally had to pull back and get into shade, apply some sort of wet cloth on the lens hood and things like that. So again, as I said, temperature does play an important role. So look at this picture. I mean, as you can see, again, the action at its peak. I really love this picture. I don't know why, but maybe because of the fact that he was the captain of the team. So the guy who has just hit the ball is the captain of the team. The guy who is about to catch the ball is the captain of the opponents. And the look on his face, the look on the batsman face, and the ball just about to reach his hands is something I really love. And that the referee on the right hand side, it's such a balanced frame for me. So even in sports, I would say you guys can follow some of the basic rules, that rules of thirds and things like the golden rules and all, but at the same time, even if you're breaking them, that's perfectly fine, that's okay. At the end of the day, you are actually looking out for something interesting. Look at this picture. I mean, how interesting this is. I think this is one of the best I feel so far I've shot from that particular match. uh, you know, the fielder on the back, the ball's just above the stumps, like an inch above the stump. The guy, the batsman, he's still in the air, he's still mid in the air. So things like that. Again, for me, it's quite a balanced frame, though I would have preferred something in the middle as well. Maybe that referee, if he would have been standing in the middle, this would have been more balanced for me. But, for me, this is like perfect. This shot is like perfect. So, as I'll just shift a bit towards cycling events. So, cycling is again a very different thing altogether. Okay, so when we are doing cycling events, things change drastically, because in events like these, most of the times, uh, you can just imagine that in your, you can just imagine that picture as well. If you shoot a cyclist bang on coming into the camera, coming straight into the camera, usually it doesn't result into a very classy, very usable image, right? And for that, you need to give some sort of motion, and along with that, some sort of angle to the cyclist. So that's when, the reiki of the track events, that's when the reiki of the track of uh, is of real importance. Why? Because most of the times when we are doing cycling events, all these tracks are usually straight with like 2 3 turns somewhere around. That too, not those, it's very hard to find U turns in some of the tracks. And when we are shooting cycling events, the core focus is to find a spot where, a turn is happening, or the background is clutter free. Sometimes the clients are like, they are looking out for brandings and all in the background. Most of the times, specifically for cycling events, clients are definitely looking at action photographs, and for cycling events, it's hard to shoot them. Why? Because, finding these angles is something really difficult. And uh, for me, whenever I'm doing cycling events, I don't focus majorly on the tracks. My usual focus is on the subject only. And because, when you are shooting an event in 12 noon sort of time and overhead sun is there, you definitely don't want to focus more on the track. Rather, you would want to focus more on the cyclist and things like that. So such sort of events are, again, they are good to photograph, easy to do as well. So I don't know, as a person, what kind of questions you might ask regarding these. But for me, I mean, cycling is something, shooting like a normal photograph. Cycling is damn easy. It's just that if you've got a nice spot to shoot, then, you can definitely shoot great photos. So this is again one picture of a cycling event which happened back in Delhi. And I'll just shift a bit towards the running events. Okay, so I'll just shift a bit towards the running events, those marathons and, triathlons and all that. Uh, so you might have seen in last 3 4 years, even in India, you might have seen the culture of marathons, the culture of not triathlons. I would say the culture of marathons has increased so drastically that, I mean, even you guys would have got someone in network who would have ran a 21 or 42K sometime. So, I mean, you go out and you find people running a lot of marathons out there. So that is the reason why I tell you is that the sports photography is gonna be the really big thing in the coming days. Though things are not working out really well this time, like due to this COVID and all. But I'm sure when things are normal, marathons will be back. And, when I talk about marathons, I'm talking about, 500 600 events in a year. And trust me, all these organizers, all these people are actually looking out for photographers, and they are unable to find good people out there, and then they have to call photographers from other countries to get the works done. Like, even I go to other countries to get the marathons done. So that's the point. So that's the reason I'm telling you that sports is gonna be a big thing. If you're getting into weddings and all things like that, I would say just focus more on sports, and you'll end up making more money. And, the life here is like much better. I mean, for me, it's much better. So it's such sort of sporting events we gotta do. And again, you might have noticed all these 4 photographs which I've shown you. In these photographs, you are unable to see uh, the track. You are unable to see the event location, because again, we have to work on clients' expectations and requirements. Most of the times, very few clients allow us and give us the liberty to get some offbeat shots done. But majority of the clients who are looking out for photographers, they are looking out for people who can help them out to capture such sort of flat photographs. Though it's not a great picture, but usually the clients are looking out for something like this as well. They're eyeing for things like these. So offbeat pictures, we really rarely get chance to do, because most of the times all these assignments goes to, news agencies. Getty is doing that, or some other agencies, EPA and FPA, they are doing that. So we as event sports photographers, we get really less opportunities to, play around with the offbeat pictures. But most of the times we are, working on clients' expectations and requirements. So these are some of the photographs of, those sporting events. So again, I've shown you all the pictures. There was this person, Mr. Uh, someone who Ramalingam. He mentioned that he would like to see some photographs of the football. So Mr. Lingam, I have not, placed a portfolio right now handy with me to show you the football photographs, but I can give you a brief idea whenever you are shooting a football, or whenever you are trying to, get an event. Um, for a football event, you definitely need to get two cameras really handy with you, and one should have a 70-200 on it, and the other should have a 400 2.8, or anything not above than 400, because in football, if you are shooting anything above 400, it gets difficult for you to capture the action in its truest form. Why? Because in football, you are not just focusing on one player. Most of the times, you have to focus on, um, you know, um, most of the times you have to focus on few players running around a block ball, or jumping around, things like that. So anything above 400 is not suggested at all. You will end up shooting all those portraits, which is definitely not required in that sport. And someone has asked about sailing sports. Mr. Rajesh, sailing sports I have not shot in India. I mean, once this boating event happened in Mumbai, which was done by a company called ProCam back in 2018, I believe, in the month of October or November. We had this opportunity, but I was not here. I was in Abu Dhabi doing a triathlon, but I couldn't shoot it, and that was a failure. I mean, none of the Indians actually participated in that. So all these South Africans and people from UK, they had joined that event, and it was a failure. So in India, they are not happening at the moment. And getting into an event which is not happening in India and creating a portfolio for that is like super duper difficult. So Mr. Rajesh, I would really suggest that if rather than opting for a sailing event, start shooting from something as basic as cricket. Though it sounds really basic, but shooting cricket itself is, I mean, once you start doing, you will start getting experience that it's quite a tough job. And India, like with a 1.3 billion people all around loving the sport, loving the same sport, I mean, it's quite easier to get work as well. Okay, so there's someone called Vision Plus. He has asked me a question about the focus. Okay, very nice question. A lot of people ask this. So when you are shooting sports, not most of the times, all the times, the focus is on AFC. We call it autofocus continuous. And when you use that AFC mode, you have to choose the dynamic area. And when you choose the dynamic area, it makes sure, I mean, you get to see some boxes out there. One sec. Yeah, you get to see some boxes out there, and you gotta keep that subject within those 9-10 boxes. And as soon as the subject just starts moving from left or to the right, or maybe right to the left, you gotta make sure that the subject remains on those boxes to keep that dynamism intact. So the very basic setting is, I think in Nikon bodies, if you go to A3, the focus setting is A3, I believe. You need to go there and just fiddle around AFC mode, dynamic mode, and there's one mode in the higher end bodies which allows you to differentiate between the subject movement as well. I mean, if your subject is moving really really fast, uh, then you can choose a mode which is at A6, or maybe I can just have a look for you. uh, yeah, it's in A3 only. It's under A3. You'll have to just go through the camera setting once. In that, if your subject is moving really really fast, you can just increase the speed to erratic. If your subject is moving like bit slower, then you can just keep it to the normal. So usually if you're starting out, just keep your camera settings, your focus setting to AFC, keep your lens on autofocus, keep your the dynamic focus at the 25 pointers, or maybe more if your camera allows you to do that. And most of the times you will be able to capture the shot. Okay, there is Mr. Rajesh. Can we hobby photographer also come to such events and click the photos, or one needs permission? Okay, Mr. Rajesh, things here, I mean, in India only I've seen that if you have to get closer to the track, it's like super duper difficult as a someone who's a hobbyist or something like that. Because for that we need all those accreditations and all those permissions, all those jackets and all that to just move around the track. But if you're shooting events outside India, like most of the times I've seen a lot of hobbyist photographers are actually making their portfolios by joining these events like this only, the way you have showed your interest to join in. But here I have seen like really, I think I've seen not even one event in which the clients or the organizer allowed the hobbyist photographers to join in. So I'm sorry, I can't help you out on this. How do you take care of yourself as well as the equipment in more sports, uh, Mr. Noronha? I'm sorry if I'm taking this name wrong. Okay, so there had been instances when I broke my 7200. There had been instances when I broke my T500. That was a painful experience. There had been instances when I fell down, got an injury. I mean, it's a part of the game. It's a part of the game. So taking care of yourself when you are doing more sports. I'll show you one picture, then I'll be able to answer this question uh, well. One day I was like shooting a rally in Karnataka, and I somehow got super excited, which I should have not done that. And I had shot this image. Um, I don't know if you guys like it or not, but for me, this is something which still gives me the goosebumps. I'll tell you why. Because this has been shot at 16 mm, so you guys can actually imagine how close I would have been to this car, which was coming from a turn. There's this on the right hand side. There's a turn. This car took a U-turn and just came towards me, and I shot it at 16 mm, which was like super duper damn close to the car. So I would say, taking care of yourself is super important. Of course, you have to do it, but it's all about experience. It's just about, you just don't need to get overexcited or get over involved in shooting stuff, because sometimes things do get really bad. I've had a friend. He's like, I mean, he was shooting on there's this place in Ladakh, the highest pass. I'm forgetting the name. He was shooting over there. He was shooting a Rete Himalaya, and after like 20-25 minutes, he was out of breath and all that. They had to, take him away from a chopper, and he didn't survive because the oxygen level was so less. And he got super excited because in such sort of situations, you gotta keep a track of your health first. I mean, so that's quite a question for sure. Taking care of equipment is something which you can definitely do, but when doing any sort of sports, not just motorsports, I would say is still easier I mean, in my perspective, it's still easier in any sort of sports. I would say taking care of yourself is more important. I have seen situations in which, a fast paced ball coming towards the camera, just past me from a feet away, things like that. They happen, they do happen. So that's quite a nice question. It's just about the fact that how your responsive times are, how vigilant you are, how protective you are towards your gear. But I feel if you are overprotective towards your gear, you will definitely miss your shot. So you just have to find a sweet spot between maintaining that level of protectiveness and maintaining that level of getting the shot. So that's what my personal belief is. Should we do loose composition? Raj, this is quite a nice question. In beginning, I have noticed a lot of photographers are actually doing loose compositions. Um so for me, see, it's a personal choice. It's a personal choice. If I have a 400 lens, if I have a 500 lens, I don't need to do loose compositions, and I can just capture whatever I would want to do. If you do not own a lens which is required for that particular event, you can definitely start with loose compositions and start cropping stuff. Most of the, I'm not saying most, like every single sports photographer, we do have to opt for cropping. If I'm shooting landscape, let's say I also shoot landscapes like professionally. I've done other assignment, landscape photography assignments as well. So if I'm shooting landscape, my idea is to make sure that I may be able to capture the best possible photograph in a single frame without the need of cropping. But if you are starting out in sports, and if you are lacking equipment, specifically lenses, shooting loose compositions is something you can definitely start through. That's not an issue at all. Most of the photographers start like that only. But again, as I mentioned in the beginning of the session, try to capture the action when it's at its peak. When you are able to capture the action when it is at its peak, even the loose compositions will look great. Trust me on that. Do action cameras works in sports photography? Mr. Akshay, a lot of when we are doing films, we had done this Dakshin Dare film once. When the video thing is going on, most of the time we are using GoPros to be installed on the cars, under the cars, on the tracks. Things can be done, but professionally, trust me, clients are not looking out for the photographers who are using action cameras to photograph stuff which they can utilize at a later stage for their own purposes. They are definitely not looking out for photographers using that. For that, you definitely need to start shooting with your nicer equipment. I'm not saying high end bodies, I'm saying a decent equipment. How does one start in this genre? Quite a question for sure. So I'll just give you my example, how things started for me. So since the beginning, I don't know why I had some sort of indulgence towards action. And gradually, in 2008, this Delhi marathon came to India. It happened for the first time or maybe the second time, and through a friend of mine, I got a reference from them. Then that client hired me, and from that day onwards, I got into sports. Then one assignment gave me the other one gave me the other one, and the chain just started. So if you are like really new, I would say make a portfolio. Make a portfolio. Even that if the gully cricket is happening, try to make a portfolio of that as well. Because even in gully cricket, there's no foundation of capturing action, right? If your portfolio can actually convey the feeling that you are good enough to capture the action, that's it. Along with good composition, then and just get in touch with few photographers out there. Get in touch with sports photographer. If you're in Delhi, I can help you out once this COVID situation is better. And once your portfolio is ready, be it a portfolio of 30-40 images, once it's ready, you can actually just try to promote your work, and gradually, trust me, internet is here. You may end up getting clients from around the world. It's like damn easy these days. Okay, there's one starting genre, Mr. Tamil Inian. What F value is suggested during night time? Very low light. I'll show you one picture here, not one, few picture, and I'll answer your question as well. Are you guys able to see this photograph?
Still the gypsy.
Are you guys able to see this photograph?
Yeah, the car.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
so the person, Mr. Tamil Inian, you have asked me how to keep the focus, like the aperture values for night stages or actions happening at the night. So I'll just answer you through this photograph, or maybe this one. Completely depends what you are shooting. Completely depends what you are shooting. If you are shooting cricket, I have had situations, like not just me, everyone faces situations when you can't go less than 5.6. If you are using a 500 lens, or maybe 500 with a 1.4x converter, you can't go less than 5.6. Then you definitely need to, boost your ISO, lower down your shutter speed in a way that you are able to capture the action. But when you are shooting things like these, this was a night stage which was being shot in, again, in Jaisalmer. Uh, so in this picture, my aperture was closer to 2.8 or 4. Because why it was 2.8 or 4? Because I was using a setup of flashes to capture the action. There's one flash just behind me, like it's an off-camera flash. There's one flash just behind the car as well. If you can see the yellow light behind the car, it is coming from that flash because I had placed a yellow gel on it. Because the kind of situation, the kind of lighting we had was all yellow. So to answer your question quickly, I would say completely depends on what you are shooting. For cricket, it could be 4, 5.6, or even 2.8. I would not suggest you to shoot at 2.8 at night, specifically for cricket or even football. But for things like these, you can definitely go for 2.8 or f4 for sure. And I mean, for night, you definitely need to boost your ISO. Definitely need to do that. And I'll show you one picture of cricket's night stage as well, so that you get an idea of what I'm talking about. Uh, let's say this picture. This was being done at night only, and again the camera settings were closer to 1 on 640 or maybe 1 on 800. I'll have to check it precisely. Maybe it was 1 on 800 with f4 lens, and the ISO was closer to 2000 2500. Because when you are shooting specifically cricket and football at the night time, those big lights, those big halogen lights, stadium lights are so damn bright that you are able to capture the action easily. It's like quite easy. You just need to focus on the subject. That's it. The lighting is usually quite good. And we have what F value. Okay, do you face any difficulty while shooting in floodlight, indoor or outdoor? In PBL, after every point they tend to change the different. Yes, that's quite a question, Mr. Varun. Varun Mukhya. Okay, yes, PBL. I was talking about that. That was my first time when I had done badminton, and that was my first time when I was not carrying a 400 lens, and that was the first time when I had to shoot the whole event with a 70-200 lens. Plus, when I saw the stadium, it's in Delhi only. When I saw the stadium, their lighting was more or less based upon uh, giving an extraordinary feel for the video which was happening, which was going live. Because in PBL, yes, they tend to change the lighting after after every single match or after every 10-15 minutes. But I'll tell you one thing: they change those lightings in between the fillers to give an attractive feel to the stadium itself. Rather, most of the lighting which is on the subject, which is on the players, remains constant. And I believe for me it was like very less, because I had been shooting at 4000 ISO or something like that, 4000 4500, something like that. And again, when you are shooting this thing, badminton, you can't go less than 800. If you have to capture the shuttle in the frame, you can't go less than 800. So if you search about the PBL photographs online, you will get to see almost 90%, or I would say almost 80% of the photographs have been captured by the photographers, in which there is no shuttle, in which is the main subject, right? Of course, the player is the main subject for us, but shuttle is something which they all are going through, right? Which are they all are following. And 80% of the photographs which you are seeing online, 80% of photographs they have published on their website, they have got no shuttle, they have got no action at its peak. So yeah, it was quite difficult. Lighting remains constant on the subjects, but around the stadium it just keeps on changing, all those colorful lights and all. So for that, I remember what I did was I calculated some sort of white balance settings for my subjects only, and I decided that I'll be using my 7200 only, and I won't be focusing majorly on the stadium. Rather, I would be focusing more on the subjects only. So that custom settings of my white balance helped me a lot, and I was able to handle that. Uh, any techniques for panning and light trails? Do you use tripod, Mr. Saurabh? No, I don't use tripod when I'm doing panning, because for such sort of assignments, you are I mean, when you are doing sports, you are already carrying hell lot of equipment with you, and carrying again a tripod with you just to get few shots of light trails and all that is quite a difficult. Although there's one small trick to do that in your camera settings. If you go to flash settings, the there's one there is one flash setting called slow curtain sync. If you want to note that, you can just note it down: slow curtain sync or the rear curtain sync. If you just turn on that settings, and if you are shooting in low light, I'll have to find that picture somewhere. If you're shooting in low light and if you use that setting in your flash, what happens is that, let's say your shutter speed is 1 on 10 maybe, okay, and you are shooting with a slow curtain sync and you have a flash on your camera. So what happens, your shutter opens, it just allows the subject to pass through your camera, and once the shutter is about to get close, the flash fires. So what happens, from here to this point, the subject actually gave you a light trail. I mean, if there's a headlamp, if there's a rear light, it gives you a light trail. It gives you a light trail, and when the flash fires, it freezes the subject. So, and trust me, most of the organizers and most of the clients, they are not preferring such sort of pictures. But yes, to fiddle around with settings, to play around with the settings, you can definitely try that. You can even try that on a fast moving car on a road as well at a night time. Just keep your camera settings somewhere closer to 1 on 10, 1 on 15. Just follow the car, just focus one car, make sure that that car is perpendicular to your camera. If this is your camera, it should be something like this. If it is going diagonally away from the camera, or it is coming diagonally towards the camera, the shot will not come out as expected. If it is perpendicular to your camera, you can just start following from here, and when the car comes here, you can just fire the flash and you'll get the trail. And for panning, again, the same thing. In daylight, you need to push your aperture to, let's say, it depends on the amount of daylight is available. If it is like 12 noon, or if it is like 6 p.m. in the evening, or maybe 5 p.m., it depends on the available lighting. If it's 12 noon, you definitely need to push it to around 22 or maybe even 36 if your lens allows you to do that. And let's say you are on 22 and you bring down your shutter speed to 1 on 10 or 1 on 15 or maybe 1 on 20, and you follow the subject in the same way perpendicular to the camera, you will be able to capture that. But again, there's one pointer here, that when you are deciding upon the shutter speed, there are a lot of subjects where 1 on 10 will.
Sorry, Naveen, somebody muted you, so you'll have to repeat the last part. This
Yeah.
also happens.
Okay, so let's say, Mr. Magnesh, I would request you to turn on your mic. I think I can hear your hissing sound, which is quite evident. Okay, so I was saying, if you are shooting a panning shot, and your shutter speed is closer to anything between 1 on 10 to 160, that doesn't make sure that you will be getting the shot. Why I'm telling you? Because your shutter speed will have to be proportional to the subject's speed as well. If there is a car moving at a speed of, let's say, 10 kilometer per hour, uh, getting it on 1 on 10 would be like super easy. If a car which is moving at a speed of, let's say, 200 kilometers per hour, on 1 on 10 you would be able to get nothing. So for that, you might need 1 on 125, 1 on 160, or 1 on 250 as well. So things like that, you just have to find the sweet spot between the shutter speed and your aperture. And gradually, when you start experimenting with it, gradually when you start fiddling around with your settings, you just end up realizing it. You just end up finding that sweet spot quite quickly. Yeah. So, are you guys have like more questions? I was like expecting some serious questions from you guys. I mean, anything which you would like to know, or maybe let me just show you one more thing. So, I'll show you a few more pictures. When you do motorsports, oh sorry, when you do sports, uh, these days sports photography portfolios are also getting very common. So since the beginning of the session, I've been telling everyone that sports is going to be the next big thing. uh, Bouldering is again very much in these days. All these rock climbers, boulderers, they are making a huge move, though it's not a very you can't make a lot of money out of this particular sport, but it is coming up, it is taking up the pace. And sports photography portfolios are also getting really common these days. So things like that, you can just fiddle around. So even in sports, it's if you have the lighting of if you have the knowledge of lighting, if you have the knowledge of using your flashes, if you have the knowledge of using multiple lighting equipment, that really helps out, in planning such sort of pictures as well. Such sort of pictures, I mean, we use an octa box on the right hand side in such a way that the background is dark, the car is like well lit up, the players are like well lit up. You can also think about such stuff. All these portfolios are getting really common these days. Someone just asked me one quick question: how to start with sports photography? I would say you can definitely try to get in touch with these people who are usually being seen in the sporting events. Just try to get in touch with them, start shooting for them, and gradually you can just make a portfolio, and that portfolio will help you out to get a lot of assignments. So these are some more pictures of desert rallies. You can have a look. This is again one more panning shot. Someone had asked me one question. So again, I love to even in panning, I love to do one thing most of the times. I love to give some angle to the photograph. Angle as in I love to tilt my camera a bit. So in this photograph, as you can see, I've tilted my camera a bit towards the left, and through that through that tilt, by doing that tilt, I'm able to capture some sort of you know elevation, some sort of acceleration towards the right direction, right? So you can again play with such sort of things, and these things, they do help a lot. They do. So like you see this picture, I've compositionally wise, I love this shot. All those tires are in motion, the biker is like tack sharp, right? And again, there's a lot of space on the right hand side. I've seen this error being done by a lot of photographers. What they do, they capture stuff like, let's say, um, wherever the subject is moving, they don't leave a lot of space over there. So for any sort of photography, I'm not talking about sports, even for events and all, compositionally your photographs have to convey some sense of connect. So for this picture, that connect is coming from motion towards the right, plus there's a tilt of the camera towards the right. So these three factors, when combined, are giving some sense of motion towards the right hand side. Most of the photographers, they tend to keep their subjects on the direction of the movement. And for me it is not a very good thing, but I do it too. I'll show you why. In this shot I have done that, and there is a reason why I have done that. I have left very small breathing space on the right hand side, because I really wanted to capture the whole trail of this dust which is coming from like another 400 500 meters from the back of the car. So at some point such sort of pictures work out, but most of the times they don't. In this scenario for me it worked out. Most of the times if I would have captured this picture, if there would have been no trail, just a tarmac road, it would have been next to useless. Talking about this shot I showed you, I mean, these are like client requirements, not. And okay, I love such sort of pictures as well. So even in sports, particularly about motorsports, I love such sort of framing when I keep my subjects on you know uh, um, on maybe the left side or maybe the right side, depending on where their motion is gonna be. So in this photograph, the biker's movement is towards the left, so I've kept him on the right hand side, and I've gone so damn low towards the ground that this out of focus feel of the ground, and is actually giving uh, a space for the eye to travel into the photograph rather than just moving around here and there. So I particularly love such sort of pictures where the subjects are placed on the farthest corners and things like that. Such sort of pictures can also, uh, help you out to get portfolios done and things like that. Again, in this picture, as I mentioned, there is a breathing space on the right hand side. There's the action happening on the left top side. There in the bottom, I have left a lot of space. In the left top, there's a lot of action happening, and on the right hand side, I've left a lot of space, that breathing space, which allows me to make a perfect composition. So for this photograph, just a normal picture in which the action is happening bang in the middle. So yeah, something like this can be helpful as well. All these photographs, when the riders are coming bang into the camera, they are quite risky sometimes, but you just have to find that sweet spot again to protect yourself, your gear, and get the shot. And in this picture, as you can see, this is CS Santosh. I mean, one of the best guys in India who's into biking. He has done a lot of rallies and all. So in this photograph, as you can see, I had mentioned one thing, to play around with the shutter speed. Even in this photograph, though I knew the bike would be jumping for sure, because I had managed my position in a way that I stood at a spot where most of the bikes, most of the cars were actually jumping. So I kept myself there, and I focused uh, on a shutter speed which was good enough to capture the jump. Along with that, I don't know if you guys can see it, there is a motion in the tires. So this is a personal belief of mine. um, I'm not saying if the tires are not in motion, the photograph would have been bad, or if you are capturing photographs and the tires are not in motion, the photographs are bad. I'm not saying that, but it's just that it's a personal liking. So my personal liking is towards this. I don't know why, but for me it just gives me a sense of motion. Again, the sweet spot between a shutter speed where there is no panning, but the tires are in motion, the subject is stacked sharp, but this is not panning. This would have been shot somewhere around 1 on 250 or 320, and as I've always mentioned on this, like I've mentioned 3 4 times on this session, subject has been photographed perpendicularly to the camera. So again, normal shots, breathing space on the right hand side, things like that. So I'm just seeing if I've got more question. Any techniques, Akshay Nair? Can we shoot in shutter priority mode or have to use Akshay? See, when you are starting out, I would suggest you to shoot on shutter priority mode when you are starting out. But when you have got hang of everything, when you are shooting uh, things, when you are like super duper comfortable with your camera equipment, I would say just shift completely towards manual, because uh, trust me, manual mode gives you the ability to play around with so much of things that you can't even imagine in shutter priority or maybe aperture priority mode. Manual is the thing which you have to get into sooner or later. You just have to start shooting in manual. I think I might have one photograph in which I would be able to convey this difference of manual and all. Okay, let's see this picture. Mm, okay, this picture I'm talking about for you, Akshay. Uh, as you can see, the sun is behind the subject, right? If I would have shot this picture in a shutter priority mode, the faces, and these are like white people, these are Europeans, and the camera meter readings, especially for white skinned people, are quite difficult to find, when especially when the subject is behind, when the sun is behind them. If I would have chose the shutter priority thing for this particular photograph, this would have been completely dark. It would have been, let's say, maybe 2 or 3 stops darker than what you are seeing right now. There are three reasons for that. First, they are wearing black color. Second, their skin color is white, which means the camera gets confused between black and the extreme white. And the most important and the third factor is the sun is at their back. So for such pictures, obviously you can't just rely on manual and oh sorry, you can't just rely on shutter or aperture priority. You just have to get onto manual mode. Sooner or later, you have to. Uh, do you use back button focus? Okay, this is I usually okay. I'll tell you, this is quite strange for you. This is quite strange to answer for me as well. But unlike other sports photographers, I hate using back focus button. I don't know why, but from my initial days, I have been accustomed to use a shutter release button as a focus button, and I'm like quite confident with that. And I like to keep my thumb available for other buttons as well. So for me, I hate using back focus button, but 99%, 99.9% of the photographers, sports photographer, uh, they use the back focus button. So it's just a priority. It's just the fact that I have got myself accustomed of not using it. Akshay, somebody else is presenting. Okay, are you able? I think no, Akshay. It's just me. So I think we can uh, wrap this. Or if you guys have got more questions, then maybe I'm like ready to answer them. The Ramalingam, is that LCD on camera used full to this type of photography? Is that LCD on camera useful to this type of photography? I didn't get this question properly, but I think you are trying to ask that the LCD, the viewing LCD which is on top of the camera is of use. That is what you are asking, right? So depends, completely depends. When you are doing things professionally, you get accustomed to using your camera and lenses so well that even if your camera setting is at 4 and you move your fingers maybe 2-3 times, you just get to know it's on 7.1 now. So depends. If you are beginning out, definitely that screen will help you out a bit. I'm not saying a lot. It will help you out a bit, but for me, I personally feel that seeing camera settings again and again is something which I'm not doing. And the fingers and the use is so accustomed now that even in the viewfinder, if I can see and just change that settings really quick, so that's for me, that's of no use. So I think that's quite a bit for the day, and I think for anyone or everyone who's looking forward to start in, I've got one small piece of advice for you. uh, One is that start shooting whatever, wherever you are seeing the action, start shooting that. Second thing is, once you have started shooting, once you have started getting a portfolio, uh, make a portfolio of the pictures which are the best ones. No one, I mean, if you get in touch with an organizer, if you get in touch with a client, or if you get in touch with a sports photographer who's looking for other sports photographers, no one is looking forward to see your 200 photographs to understand how good you are or how bad you are. If you have got like 15 or 20 good photographs which are able to convey the message, your knowledge towards lighting, towards angles, towards your shutter speed, use of shutter speed and apertures. That's gonna be really helpful for you to proceed further. And second thing, once you start getting assignments, I would say always carry backup equipment. Always carry backup equipment, because in sports you never know what could go wrong. uh, Things usually go wrong with a lot of photographers who are into action sports, adventure sports. Even in cricket, I mean, cricket and football, usually it doesn't happen a lot. But when you are into adventure sports and all that, things usually go wrong a lot of times. Equipments usually fall into bits a lot of time. In bits, I mean, they don't break apart, they just stop performing due to certain reasons. The dust particles enter into the lenses, things like that. So always carry backup equipment. So that's the best piece of advice I would give you, everyone. And if you have more questions, you would have received an email. All my handles, social media handles, and everything is mentioned in that email. You can get in touch with me, and if I'll be able to help you out, I would love to do that. Cool. So I think we are not getting more questions now, and we can wrap it up.
Definitely, Naveen sir. It was great session and lovely to see your work. Actually,
Okay. Thank you so much. I hope I was able to show something, because I've got so much to show. I was like, if I show this, I should not show this and all that. If people are looking forward to see more of the stuff, they can definitely just get onto the website and see everything. Cool. Thanks so much, everyone. I hope I was quite helpful for you. Let's see if we can do more sessions. Thanks. See you.
thanks, Naveen sir. Thank you.
Oh.
You can drop off the call, sir.
Yeah, I'm just doing that.